Hello and welcome to another Shared Screens review. Joining me as part of Shared Screens to talk all things High on Life, we got Josh and Jordan. How we doing, fellas?
Fantastic. Doing real good. Want to go down to the old Space Applebee's.
What a move that was. And on the ones
Just-
on the ones and twos, we do have Alec Bobco somewhere out there, maybe in space. Who knows?
Hello.
He's there. There he is. He's at Space Applebee's, so he might tune in when he's done having appetizers and such. So guys, High on Life. Jordan, I want to get your just like surface level thoughts. Then I'll give my little opinion, and then we'll go into Josh just taking it away.
Yeah, so for the surface level thoughts,
Yes.
I've been interested in this game since the E3 reveal because something about that original trailer vibed with me. It was like adult Ratchet and Clank, and I was like, I fuck with this. This game is also special in that it is the first-person shooter I'm playing mouse and keyboard on my PC. So it was I was originally in normal mode, dropped it down to story. I know there is like that learning curve, I kind of have to stop thinking, oh, it's just like I have to go back to be like, you're 5 and you're playing with controller for the first time. Like you have to relearn this stuff. And like that's great. And just for some background, I've never sat down and watched Rick and Morty willingly. I've had some people in college throw it on a few times, and like I've seen a few episodes here and there. And Rick and Morty has some stuff from what I've seen, some stuff I really like, and some stuff I really don't in terms of the humor. And this game, I think, highlights that in the most extreme levels, where like there are some stuff that genuinely made me laugh, and there were other parts where I'm like, the joke died 3 lines ago. Please shut the fuck up.
I feel like that is just Justin Roiland's humor
so
in general.
And the reason why I agree with that is, I don't want to trash anyone. Different strokes, different folks. I know I have humor that people don't vibe with. He was on 2 different Kind of Funny podcasts this past week. He was on the Kind of Funny podcast, and he was on an episode of Kind of Funny Games Daily. That man needs to shut up sometimes. Like it was getting to points where he was just. Yeah, and I get it. And again, I'm not trashing him. I'm sure he's a great guy. He makes good stuff. I'm just playing around when I say this. I don't think his humor is 100% mine. Just to give like a little bit more detail, I don't like humor that seems so random or is just funny because they're saying this is the joke. I don't know if that makes sense, but it seems like a lot of the times, like when people find stuff funny, they're like, oh, it's funny because the creator said that's the part that's funny. Like the thing from Rick and Morty that always stands out for me the most is like the plumbus. I don't know if you guys know about that bit people are like obsessed with. I'm like, I guess I had to be there. It's the same reason why I've never fully vibed with like all things Tim and Eric.
I don't know what that is.
It's another Adult Swim similar type of vibe of humor. Have you ever seen like the "It's free real estate" sketch?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, that one was funny. Other stuff they've put out is just very hit or miss for me. But other than that, I think the game has a very unique art style. Performance is, for me, I will say, mixed to good. And the reason why I say mixed to good is one of the things that stands out to me is that for being an FPS, this game does not let you lock frame rate. And so during smaller scenes, my GPU is letting me hit 120, but during more action-heavy scenes, it can't really hit that 120, but it still looks good at 60. But because it can't quite hit it and I can't lock it to 60, my FPS is jumping from 60 to 111 to 84, and I had to play this game in small bursts because it was giving me headaches from those frame rate drops. So I'm kind of surprised that they don't on PC let you lock the frame rate. And when I switched from borderless windowed to full screen, that option still didn't come up. So I was like, that's an interesting choice. Sure. But other than that, I think it's a fantastic Game Pass game. Not that long, pretty fun. Gameplay feels good enough. Like I was talking to my cousin about this actually, because my cousin is a huge Rick and Morty fan. Okay. And he was like, no, for me, it's shitty gameplay for humor I like, and I'm willing to suffer through it. My cousin isn't also like the most well-versed 100% in like games and stuff. Like he knows his shit, but he doesn't play like the way we do. So he's just kind of like,
sorry, that being said, I think this is the perfect game for those people.
Well, see, the thing is he plays a lot of COD. And so he's going, yeah, I don't think the gameplay's that good, and I don't think he realizes that like it's not that the gameplay is bad, it's just not the main course. The way I described this to him, I was like, this kind of to me is like an FPS. It reminds me a lot like of Uncharted, where both the story and the gameplay are good enough that they go hand in hand. Where like Uncharted's gameplay isn't horrible, but even though the story is probably the highlight, it's not like it's the peak story. It's a very basic actiony type of blockbuster, and so you know what you're getting with both sides of it, and both help. So I know that was maybe a little deeper than surface level, but that was kind of me hitting on everything.
Sure, I think you accomplished what you set to do. Alec, what were your Borderland thoughts?
Well, a lot like Jordan, I thought the gameplay was all right. Having played other FPS games, most recently, like kind of like Halo Infinite, like it definitely was not up to par to, most FPS standards, but it was, like I said, serviceable, or like Josh had mentioned in our review of it, in the shorter review, just kind of basic, not too many frills. The sensitivity was a little high, I thought, just for it being the default sensitivity. Like it was, again, fine. Like I didn't feel like I had to go back in and mess around with that kind of thing, but it just felt like it was a little kind of going all over the place with where I was looking around. But the comedy, Rick and Morty, I love that show. Like it's just kind of, it was always that show for me, just to kind of turn my brain off and just have some good laughs. And this game is the same thing. Like Josh and I were talking after we recorded that, which is some of our favorite parts, and we were just laughing, just talking about some moments, or like some of the different parts that we did. Like there's a couple choices you have, or I would say choices, but like parts where you can do one thing, like he did one thing and I did another thing, and both were equally as funny.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I'd say my biggest gripe with the game is the checkpointing or lack thereof, in the longer encounters and boss fights. Just because there's so many times I get towards the end of a boss fight and die, and I have to literally do it all over again. Or it's just a long encounter and same thing. It puts you right back at the beginning. No like intermediate checkpointing.
Yeah, I personally the boss fights, they were fine for me. I also played on easy. So I only died once to a boss, and it did put me back at the beginning, and I was like, oh, that's kind of crappy. But I think because I was playing on easy, I can't really talk for checkpointing for boss.
Yeah,
stages.
I was playing on normal, or like basically the one that had like you've had shooter experience before.
Yeah.
Sure.
The boss fights also tended to get easier, I think, partially because of gun, like the weapons you unlock. Because like I think the boss fight that I was the worst at, and again, I said this was my first time mouse and keyboard, was the first boss fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll just continue on the bosses when I give my thoughts. The bosses, I felt like they were attempting to do unique things with each one, but they all kind of just felt basic, as you guys said that in the shorter review. I completely agree with that. I think my main gripe with the game as a whole is that every aspect of High on Life feels like set dressing. Like I don't know what aspect of it besides the humor that I'm supposed to say like this is great, but all this around it is okay. Like I don't, if it's not the humor, I don't know what's great about it. And with the humor being something that is so hit or miss for people, I can't really say like, because you should play this game because of this. I think all of it is just okay, and I don't know what the overall aim or accomplishment was with this title. I know that sounds a little harsh, but I laughed out loud so many times with this game. So for me personally, the humor succeeds. I love that the gun never shuts the fuck up. I love that. I've never seen a game where the gun is talking to you. Apparently there's an Oddworld game where that kind of happens. I don't know. And you go through, you get 4 other weapons. I don't feel like there's enough enemy variety to warrant me using any other weapon. So I think what would help with the character moments of the guns and in gameplay is just having more enemy variety. I think that would help a lot in this title. But overall, yeah, I think if the humor is something that you don't like, I don't think you'll like anything about this game. I'm not saying you'll dislike anything about this game. This game is just fine. But I loved the experience that I had with it, because I think there is some clever writing in the humor and pointing out things they're like, oh, well, this is a lazy checkpoint, or this is a lazy thing. We didn't do this. Bad assets. We reused that asset. That came up a lot, where I'm like, maybe you should have just not done that line as many times, because now I'm just like, as a critical eye, I'm like, yeah, I was noticing that, and then you called it out, which is funny, but in my opinion, that doesn't give you a pass every single time. Just
I
because
don't
you're
remember
calling it
that.
out.
I don't think I got that line.
I got
I got that line.
like 5 to 8 times, I would say, where it's like, I don't like, one time it was just like, oh, another, like near the end, it's like another pipe. Oh, we shouldn't have done that. That's lazy. Blah blah blah. I don't know, something along those
Dock us a
lines.
point. He's like,
Yeah.
Kotaku, Polygon, dock us a point or two.
Wow, I
like-
didn't hear that. That I would have found legitimately funny.
I thought that was legit.
And I did find it funny, but like I heard that line like 5 to 8 times, so I'm like, maybe, maybe
I
not
just
that
had
exact,
it the
not,
once
not
in the
that
fight.
exact line, not that exact line, but like two
Right.
of that.
Yeah,
ilk.
yeah.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think High on Life is a perfect Game Pass game, because
Oh yeah.
if you don't vibe with it, you just move on. But the thing is, the thing I do want to say is that I played on easy. I loved my time playing on easy. I'm terrible at shooters. This game, I would even call, okay, this is definition a shooter, but like hey, if you're like a shooting category, I don't know if I necessarily put this in there. Like, this is just a comedy, period. That's how I would categorize that, because the shooting aspect seems like set dressing, multiple Metroidvania type-ish stuff where you have to get another weapon to use for a platform, or you have to use knifey to go use as like a rope or whatever. Yeah, I don't think those all really work well enough to warrant it even really being there. Yeah, it all just feels like not half-assed, but like they were all like 60 to 70% there, and they just needed a little more. If you're gonna improve these aspects in this title, I needed more work with those systems, and I don't feel like we got that, except for the humor, which again is hit or miss. So like, I don't know how to categorize this game as a whole, but I will leave that task to Josh as we move on to his thoughts, as he is the lead review. Josh, take it away.
First of all, I watched the Kind of Funny podcast, not the Games Daily, and I had a blast with it. Similar to this game. It's Squanch Games. If you know them and you've played Trover or their VR game Accounting Plus, you kind of know what you're in for. And if you've seen Rick and Morty, you know that style of comedy. This is definitely their most ambitious project, and they're stepping away solely for player base. Like, let's make an actual full-fledged game, and this is a solid foundation. If you love the style of comedy, you're gonna have a blast with this game. This game had me cracking up so many times with the outlandish story, the characters, the dialogue, and the meta commentary on games, as we've talked about. The biggest standout, though, definitely the guns. I absolutely loved the guns, and I thought it was
as characters or gameplay.
both.
Okay.
Both. And I thought that was the best thing that they did, was they gave each weapon its own unique personality, which feels weird to say, and it felt weird to type that out last night, I'm not gonna lie. But also they give them a unique personality and a unique ability that is somehow carried over to both combat and traversal. I love that. Like the fact that like Kenny has a goo ball that goos enemies up, but you also use that to like sling yourself across the map in certain segments, or just open certain areas, or like Gus, you can use the saw, and nothing like pretty satisfying using the saw in combat and then meleeing it and getting it to go back again.
Yeah, I didn't know I could do that until I accidentally did it.
Oh,
I
I
was
love doing that.
Oh,
It reminded me of
once
this.
I figured it out.
Yeah, it reminded me of this little game here. So it's called Marvel's Avengers. And you see, in that game, when you throw Cap shield, you get to kick it back, and it goes through a second time.
See,
I've so many times in that game.
I first discovered it in the boss fight where in the second boss fight where the guy shoots saws at you, and it felt like a perfect parry to like sling it right back to him. But the fact that each weapon has unique personality and ability that applies to both combat and traversal is incredible. Plus, shout out the cast. We got Tim Robinson, if you know him from I Think You Should Leave on Netflix or any of his SNL stuff, incredible. And you got JB Smooth as Gus. That's the
shotgun
teacher from
Spider-Man.
From Spider-Man. But that's about it, because those are the highlights of the game. The gameplay is very basic, as I mentioned, and combat, like, it feels decent enough on the sticks, but it lacks any sort of like rhythmic flow to it that you would get out of a game like Doom. And they parody Doom in the very beginning of this game. And
That's what I
so
was gonna.
like, you know,
The opening is dope. I like the
Yeah,
opening.
I love it. I love it. And like OG Doomslayer, fucking OG Wolfenstein guy, and Duke Nukem all give such divorced dad energy to the point where the guy's like, Buck, it's me, your divorce attorney. I'm here to your boyfriend, Buck. I love that shit. That shit was
Yeah.
10
No,
out of 10.
that was a good
Here's-
opening,
here's
especially
double jump.
because
Oh wait.
yeah, I also got the vibe that like they were saying that this game is inspired a lot by those types of shooters of the
Mhm.
late 90s.
Right.
And obviously, really the only ones that stuck around or has come back is Doom. I guess Wolfenstein's
Yeah.
still around as well. Sorry, I forgot that you mentioned that. But like, and like they've modernized, and so like this does feel like it is almost like a middle of like the most modern Doom and Wolfenstein and the originals.
Exactly. And I was talking to Alec in between recordings, and I was like, it feels like they just needed to hire someone that worked on those games. Like if they could get like the combat lead off of like Doom to come and just like tweak things around. Like we're so close to it, but it's too basic. And I was trying to think like what it is, what about these combat encounters that make it just like so bland, and it's just they're not like they just throw enemies for the sake of enemy sake. Like
Yeah, like I said,
that's really it.
Just
like I said
quantity.
before, I think enemy variety would help a lot because
Yeah.
if there were specific enemies where because like the one where you can stop time and you have it's basically the needler. It's basically the
Sweet.
needler.
Yeah.
A needler, but
Yeah.
better. Come
Yeah.
on, man.
Yeah. Because it's a
Like,
sniper too.
I call her my boss gun because when it's just
Mhm.
one on one, I'm just peppering them
Yeah.
with the needles and I'm then reloading once you get
And
the
yeah,
mod.
and then you're making the needles explode.
Yeah, so like I
Yeah.
called that my boss gun, and then I called Gus my close encounter gun, and then Kenny was like everything else, and then my creatures. When I was
Oh, I was.
okay,
Go ahead.
when I would run and I see a bunch of enemies in the distance, I would just pull out creature and go toof 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 toof, and I would just shoot them over there, and then by the time I get there, they're all pretty much dead, and I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like I like that,
Mhm.
but like
Mhm.
I feel like all the combat in general would benefit from having specific enemies that I can pretty much only kill with a specific gun. And I don't feel
Exactly.
like that's the case for any of the enemies in this game. There isn't a single time like if I wanted to just use Kenny, I could just use Kenny the entire game
Right.
because I found myself using Kenny for most of the game. I had to force myself to use the other weapons.
See, I actually like disagree with that because I don't think that being like, oh well, these are for this gun and this gun is for those enemies. I feel like that adds a level of complexity that the game is not trying to go for. The game is, and this is actually a positive for me, and other shooters do it too. Where they're like, whichever gun you choose as your favorite because of your style of like moving around in gameplay, you will be able to beat the game with it.
Right.
I understand that, and
personally,
I know that. Sorry, I know it's not a one to one. Like comparing this game to Doom, like that's not what they're going for. I understand. Like that would be a miss on our part to say if we went into this game expecting Doom like that. I don't know if that would
even
be
Doom
accurate
lets you
for
use
us.
any gun, doesn't it?
I'm just saying the comparison of how tight the gameplay is.
Yeah,
That's what I mean. Like I don't think going into this being like I'm expecting Doom. That's on you as the person playing this game. But I do think it doesn't have to be a one to one. Like this enemy needs this gun. I just don't think they give you any reason at all to use the other guns besides the Metroidvania stuff.
I think
Right.
it's more of a how you play games, and like I think when you guys were saying it, I think I figured out what the issue is. I feel like every gun is just like 10 to 20% less. It doesn't feel as good as it should. Like it's almost there, and I think the one that's the worst. I think Creature's the best gun because it's so different than any real gun that you'll find in most shooters. That like you just lob those everywhere, and also if you get the mod where those little guys come back and give you health, you will never like
That was
that
incredible.
shit. I was like just never dying after I got that mod.
Right.
But like, and
Um,
I think I think
Go for
the gun that feels the worst is actually Gus, and the reason why that one stands out to me is I'm usually a shotgun guy in the times I play shooters. I like getting, I'll use my machine gun, which in this case is like the needler one. I'll take out a large crowd or at least weaken them. I'll get up close. I'll switch to the shotgun, and it's just bam, bam, like one at a time. And usually but something about the way, like, after you shoot the shotgun just doesn't feel like you did anything. And I just feel like every gun needs to be like, I feel like they're all too fluid. They need to be like 10% firmer.
I think
I
with
know
the
they're people.
shotgun, you just need to use. I think it's more meant to use your aim down sights ability with it,
Yeah,
because
it sucks into you.
and that basically puts them right in front of the barrel.
Yeah, the
And
thing
then
with
you-
that was that the range on that wasn't great.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, but I think that's why you're supposed to use that aim down sights function
yeah.
with it.
It's a tough place to be in because like you can't compare it to Doom, and like with Doom each combat encounter is like it feels
It's almost
very
like a puzzle.
specific. Yes, it's a combat puzzle, and it feels like handcrafted to the point where like you can complete it without like with just your favorite gun, but also like they make it clear like, hey, this enemy is best taken down with the shotgun. This enemy is best taken down like with this weapon, and then whatever else you want to use, just fucking have at it and just rip and tear, right? And like this game
not
definitely
enough
doesn't
of that.
have that, but
Yeah.
I think that is also positive in the sense that it makes the game a lot more accessible in terms of like this
I
game is
agree.
already accessible like via Game Pass, and then if you like the comedy, you'll love this game. Even if you don't like the comedy, you can still like
You can
the
minimize it.
majority. Yeah, exactly. Which I thought that was a unique setting is you can turn down enemy banter and gun banter.
Mhm.
And let me tell you, I loved the gun banter. One thing I forgot to mention in
too.
the in the short review, some guns unfortunately like underutilized in the banter and the gameplay, and like
Knifey.
Knifey, and they make it a point. Like you're on the final mission, and Knifey, or like there a couple times, but Knifey's like, "Oh yeah, I'm here too," right? And I'm
Still
just
here, yeah.
Like
like,
they
"Oh,
did.
I love Knifey."
Yeah, I like
you
Knifey a
literally-
lot too.
the
I like Knifey too because I liked his unhinged level of violence. Like there's
Exactly.
Yeah,
And they
I
never go
hope
back
that
to that after the first level.
no,
It's literally
This-
just for bosses. Like, come on.
yeah,
You
saying this might come back to haunt me, but like there's a running joke in a group chat I have with friends where like my suggestion for everything, I'm like, just stab them. Like there was a joke one time where I was like, I was working retail around the holidays, and I was like, today's the day I get stabby with a customer. And the phrase "get stabby" got grabbed by my friends in the group chat. We're like, why didn't you just say like "get violent" or like "I'll stab"? I was like, no, I'm getting stabby. And then it just became a
Right.
thing where like it's stabby time is now like a term I use.
God damn it.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
have a single encounter where Sweezy talked. Like
Really?
right.
she didn't
And-
say shit. Nothing. Until like the end when you find out the twist with Kenny's character or whatever, or the gun character.
Right.
And before I
And-
forget, I just want to say one thing before I forget. When it comes to
Go for
like
it.
the variety in combat by gun, I think my major qualm with them not giving enough variety is because they are characters too. And if I'm only playing as Kenny, I don't really experience them as much as I thought it. Because I was forcing myself to use other guns, not for a gameplay purpose, but because I wanted to
Right.
hear their banter. And if I'm
Exactly.
pushing through a title for that reason, utilizing these gameplay mechanics that I'm not enjoying, that's gonna tear down the experience. But I just want to experience what they're telling me because the main part I'm enjoying is the banter. So it's this like push and pull for me personally.
Exactly. And can I spoil God of War Ragnarok? It's been a month and a half. Like
No.
I don't think
No.
so.
no. Okay.
Well,
man.
everyone here's
No,
beat it,
no.
so like I don't know if you want to say it.
Everyone
And if
here's
it's
beat
a
it.
spoiler,
Okay.
we'll bleep it out.
There are different companions in that game.
Okay.
That's all I'll say. But because I mainlined the game with one companion, I'm now missing out on side content with that companion, and I'm gonna have to do all that content with the second companion. And I want to replay it with where I experience it with both companions, like where I experience each side, like piece of side content with each companion. That's how I feel about this game. Where like I went down in the elevator to the lower crater section for the enlistment thing. Loved all that stuff. Did not have Kenny out, right? Just had Gus was going down. Gus didn't really say anything. Went down again with Kenny, and Kenny's like, "Oh, look, it's a sideways elevator, Akira, like Akira, or this one show from the '90s that people didn't love, or like Resident Evil 2. We got Resident Evil 2 in space. You know, I don't know if you guys have that. And I'm like, God damn, I totally like missed this. My first time through. Like, it makes me want to replay the game with each gun solely for the not for the combat, but for the just what they're gonna say. You
I
know?
saw that screenshot on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh, I must have just not gotten there," not realizing what that elevator was. And then today, I went down that elevator, like thinking that's where I had to go. And I had Kenny out, and yeah, he did say it. I just thought it was funny that they dropped like the Code Lyoko reference because I remember watching it
100%.
as a kid.
Love that show.
No idea what that is.
Yeah. And it's
He
like I
describes it.
can't.
It's like anime, and everyone had big foreheads, but it was like 3D.
Big forehead anime.
Very
Okay, cool.
Cartoon Network show.
Yeah, and he mentions it like it's on like Cartoon Network, and I was like, damn, like I really missed this because I didn't have Kenny equipped, and like what a unique situation to be in, where like makes me want to replay the game like 4 times, each with each weapon, just so I could
That's
hear what each one has to say, and that's such a compliment to the.
that's coming
Oh,
from someone who
gross.
you didn't love your experience as a whole, right? Like it was
I-
good, but like
It was good. It's just like it both combat and traversal just felt like turned my brain off. Like there's no thinking here. And like traversal, you're like given a lot of various tools to like get around the world. There's like it lacks momentum and like speed to them. I found, right, and it's just everything's it's just so basic.
yeah,
Um,
I feel like there are attempts at everything we're talking about that they just don't work entirely. Like there's a lot of like maneuverability on like using your guns for Metroidvania purposes and going back to a place, and you can do this because you have the platform from Gus. Like all these things, they're there, and like even with the movement, like you have the dashes that are like your little dodge, and then you eventually get a jetpack, and I'm like, God, I just wish these things meant more to the world
right.
than they actually do, because again, every single part of this feels like a either set dressing or a 50-50, and
Yeah.
I don't know like what the standout is. 'Cause, again, the humor is fantastic, but I know for a
Yeah.
fact someone's gonna play this game and be like, fuck this. Like, shut the
Right.
fuck up, I can't do this.
I get what
But
you're. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
I was gonna say, but I feel like, this is the only place where you're gonna get this style of humor in
Sure.
games, and this is the only place where you're gonna have shit like the achievement that's like Fallout doesn't let you do this for killing
I
the
was,
kid,
I was gonna bring that up too.
right? You are
So good.
not gonna get that anywhere else
Alright.
except this game, and
And then
that's like
there's also the achievement that's like spend 15 hours at the very real alien strip club. They're like, yeah, all your friends can see that, by the way.
right, and like that's
so
what
good.
this that's what
Clever.
Squanch
aware.
Games and Justin Roiland like they do best. Like they did in Trover and they did it here, and it's like you're not gonna get it anywhere else in games.
See, that's why I say for me the humor is such a hit or miss. Where one, okay, the humor is the main reason for this game. Cool, but if the main appeal to the game is the comedy is really funny, then make a TV show is almost my instinct. Like, I'm not saying that as like an insult, but it's like you can't insist that something you can't make something in this medium and the whole appeal just be the dialogue and the humor.
Mhm.
And I guess the excuse is, well, a lot of the humor is related to video games, and that's why it's hit or miss for me. It's like meta humor slash fourth wall breaking humor. I like to an extent, and when I say to an extent, it is both a quality and quantity thing for me, where I will take more of one if the other is good. But there were times with this where they were just finding, it almost felt like they were finding any instance that they could, even just to make the low bar joke. So it sometimes felt like it was like you were getting too much at any given moment. And then this one isn't so much meta, I guess it's more parody. Everything having like a very dumb name because they're like, haha, it's sci-fi, and like it's like the joke about, oh, people will wait in a Marvel movie to hear, hi, I'm Blorko, or the character in Star Wars named Gulp Shitto. These are like actual names with Justin Roiland projects, which like, oh, you gotta find the Klimblats and you have to go get the Blockblats, and like that will legitimately be what they're called the whole time. And it's like at
Mac
some
and cheese.
point, yeah, and it's like I get that you guys are trying to be a parody, but at some point it almost horseshoes into being like I didn't want to put any thought into naming anything at all, and I'm making fun of the people who come up with like I don't know. I don't know how to explain it without me sounding like I'm butthurt about it, which I'm not. Like again, different strokes, different folks, but like the word Lombax is clearly a made up word, but you could tell that it sounds realistic enough. It doesn't sound completely ridiculous. And then like putting these names of just I don't know. I don't know how to. I feel like I can't verbalize what I'm saying, but the almost parody of like what things are called sometimes gets a little bit. If that's all you can offer, at some point it gets annoying.
I'm not a narrative writer, so I can't imagine taking offense to that. To be honest, like the purpose of this game is the humor, and you said like, hey, if the purpose of this game is the humor, then make a TV show. That's where I disagree because I think this is a perfect template for them because there is a world where this game came out and all those aspects were fantastic and the humor was fantastic. So what I'm saying is if this product was as they envisioned it, this would be a fucking great video game. And I think and I do think they're close, and I do think that a final product of what I'm talking about definitely does belong in this space, and I believe this game does belong in this space too.
I think I worded that wrong. I get what you're saying. With this space not really being a thing in video games and this being a small team, I get why a lot of the gameplay feel and the aspects are what they are. Right. But because it's the writing team, the writing is like the what is the best. I feel it's more like if all you truly have to offer is the writing and that style of writing poking fun at like video game tropes.
Mm-hmm.
Like for this being like their first shooter game and like their second game ever, or I guess third if you count VR Accounting Plus, like I'm not trashing on them for it, but I guess it's like if the 5th Squanch game comes out or the 10th Squanch game comes out, and everyone's going like, gameplay serviceable, but humor's the best part. And like they should have just made this like an anthology show or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree overall, but I understand your point. I think that this game and games of this ilk do have a place in this like gaming sphere as like its own kind of genre. I think.
Yeah. I think in a world where every major release is this 80+ hour open world RPG, it's like
trust me, I love the length of this game.
Yeah, it's nice to be getting like games like this and Stray that are just like not AAA, but not like B or C. It's like AA maybe, and it's like 10 hours to complete at most, and you're in and you're out. Like I think there's a place for games like that in the space too, and I wish there were more games like that aren't if like 40+ hours. Like I hate how conversations about games are now like, dude, wait till you're 20 hours into a game for it to get
I
good.
hate that too.
Bro,
I'm like
20 hours, dude.
When I was in high school,
that's half the time. That's double the time of this game, right?
Yeah.
Give me more linear games.
Yeah, totally.
Give me more linear games.
I think
give me shorter games.
I think the length of this is a plus. I think 9 to 10 hours is perfect length for a game of this ilk. I do want to say this before I forget. Like a lot of the things I'm kind of shitting on like the Metroidvania aspects because it felt just kind of there to be there, and the shooter just kind of aspects just kind of was just there to be there. I enjoyed the shooting enough, but I also suck at shooters. I have to preface this. So the fact that I played this on easy and I felt like I was a fucking boss, like I gave it a pass on that because I was easily headshotting people and I was like, cool. Because when I play shooters, most of the time I'm used to sucking. Like I'm used to that. So I'm literally it's just getting past an encounter to get to something that I like a narrative beat or a boss encounter. And I feel like for that purpose it worked for me. But I do acknowledge objectively that the shooting was not great.
Did you try bumping it up a difficulty just to see what the difference was like?
Thought about it, but I didn't.
Okay. I'm not saying you had to do the whole game like that, but maybe just out of curiosity, like let me switch it, see how things feel different.
Yeah, and this is a title that I can see myself going back to because of the narrative moments where like different guns are saying different shit, like Josh brought up, where I did delete it off my Xbox just so I'm forcing myself to play other shit, but I do want to go back and play this game, and I do like that is a testament, like you said earlier, like there's replayability here to an extent, and I think that's also another plus.
I also
100%. Go.
I want to give my truly genuinely biggest gripe with this game. And it's the fact, in a way, arguably my biggest gripe with this game is that it is a shooter. And I'll explain why. This game would be fantastic to play on a multitude of drugs, but most drugs lower your reaction times, and then you suck at shooters.
I mean, you don't want to smoke a human? What you're telling me?
And I can't start with human, you know? Like,
Gotta work your way up.
Yeah, I'll start with like cat. I don't know what the type of high a cat gets. No, and actually, like, talk about like the humor that got me. Being like, oh no, you want something strong, go for teenagers. But babies, they're more like a body high, not so much a head high. That was really funny. But I did try to play this game high the first night, and colors looked great. But again, the weird frame rate giving me a headache, and then just how much I'm moving, and I'm like, I need to lie down. Like, I'm done. And I was like, I couldn't play it high, but it feels like such a crime that this isn't a game I could play stoned.
That's kind of where I was with Trover Saves the Universe, because I didn't play it in VR. But I like, and the game does a great like explanation, like in terms of like whether you play or VR or not VR, like the whole setup and like how you're actually controlling Trover, like makes sense. And Trover's like more of a platformer, third like over the top like third person game, and I played that high, and I'm like, my God, the platform, like I'm decent enough at the platforming. Playing this high though would be, I didn't try it, but it would be fantastic.
And again, I'm adjusting to mouse and keyboard, and originally the first time I tried it and I booted the game up, I was on normal. I think put a controller in my hands and keep it at easy.
Mhm.
I'll do it. I'll smoke a whole fucking J and play this game, bro.
Exactly. I wish they would have let me assigned my own control scheme. They like, there were options to on mouse and key, but not for a controller, and having crouch be down on the D-pad like was disorienting to me, because you would exactly right. Because if I was like, if it was on B or something, I'd crouch more, and I know that, you know, they even say in the game it's a power fantasy. You're supposed to feel powerful and like you're ripping and tearing and kicking fucking ass, but like with certain segments and just how many enemies they're throwing at me, like I found myself dying, like struggling, like on the verge of death a lot, or like shields broken within a couple of seconds, and like I'm scrambling to get shields, and like there were some encounters that like overwhelmed me to the point where like I died a couple times. But it would have, like, if I could have changed, I think a couple settings on controller, like I would have been better. Plus, I should have been looking out for more weapon upgrades. Like I thought you could only do it at the pawn shop. You can do it at like there are different like random vendors throughout the world that you should look for, and that's definitely one of the things I want to. That's right, and that's like one of the things I definitely do want to get into, is like exploring like the worlds, because like there is stuff to be found.
Yeah. I'll give you.
There are some warp discs that you can buy that have nothing to do with the main narrative or whatever, and you can just kind of go there and see what that has to offer. I didn't do that, but I am looking forward to doing that. So
I didn't do that either.
I was gonna say, one thing control wise that upset me on mouse and keyboard is the guns are shortcutted from 1 through 4, and then 5 when you get like the bigger gun at the end. Here's something that really annoyed me. Because when you go after your first bounty, you get to choose which boss to go after. I went after the one that gave me the needler gun, Squeevy, first before I got Gus, the shotgun.
Right.
Everyone following the order I did this in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 1 is Kenny, 4 is Creature, 5 is the big gun at the end. In my head, 2 should have been Squeevy and 3 should have been Gus, but because the game...
Is it Squeezy?
It's
Squeezy, right?
Squeezy. Yep.
Squeezy. Okay, I say Squeezy. Sorry.
I gave it to you the first time. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. And then he said it again. I'm like, fuck.
No. Yeah. Yep.
But in my head, I'm like, okay, so it's like 90% the order I got them in, except Squeezy is 3 and Gus is 2, because the game, I guess, just assumed people would go in that order more, and that fucked me up every time.
Yeah, and like we spoke on like length and stuff like that. I do genuinely like the structure of the game in terms of like
bounty system.
in terms of bounty system, and like the layup, and it's just like a simple story in terms of like, they're making humans and drugs. Go hunt these guys. Go at your own pace.
Also,
Like
sorry, just that was a
Go for it.
great premise that made the title make so much. Like I liked the
exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, that I thought was like another standout. Plus, two in terms of like making it feel more like accessible and like you can do it at your own volition and pace. That was like another big key thing.
Did anyone else actually? Because I genuinely enjoyed the narrative with your sister and whatever the fuck that dude's
Tweeg.
name was.
I hate it every
Tweeg?
time I go back.
Tweeg
I
or
No,
hate
Tweeg?
Tweeg.
I hate every time I go
I
back.
enjoyed
like,
it.
It's
Okay, I
it's just, I just felt so annoying. Like, just let me
I
get
thought
to
it
the
was funny.
pawn shop and
I
get my
didn't
upgrades and go to the
mind-
next thing.
my issue isn't the drama that they had per se. My issue is after every fucking mission, having to stand in front of the portal while your sister
Yes.
and Jean fucking argue about Tweeg, and no,
I was all
'cause
about it.
that is one of the times where I'm like, this joke stopped being funny 3 lines ago, and if it was one of the things where if you stood there, they keep going, funny. I can't fucking move, and I'm stuck sitting there and being like, I don't like just randomly choosing who I believe
Exactly,
is right in
yep.
this fucking
Yep.
argument. They hammer the jokes into the ground, and again, I think that's just the Justin Roiland style of comedy.
yeah.
And it worked. It worked for me.
Because he kept making but you guys are only kind of funny puns on kind of funnies, like on that episode of KFGD, and I'm like, just it was I to me not being able to just move during those convos is what got me. Because at the very least, let me walk around like the house if you're not gonna let me leave the house.
To your point, every other character in the game you can do that to. Like they'll start talking to you, and then if you're like, I don't want to do this, they're like, oh, okay, fuck me. All right, bye.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they're just like, okay, you don't want to listen to me, it's
But-
fine, whatever.
The sister and Jean thing annoyed me because not only
loved
not only did it happen every time,
It wasn't necessarily the Gene aspect. It was specifically her and Tweeg that I enjoyed.
but see,
yes.
it was the arguments with her and Jean that got me stuck
Yes,
there.
same.
And they were usually about Tweeg. And here's the other thing. I'm kind of fucking pissed at both of them. We've been in space 10 minutes. You have to find an alien to fuck.
That's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
Also, when your sister came in and then handed you a mirror of cocaine, I was like, okay, that's
Yeah, I was
that's
like,
a
whoa.
choice. Whoa, yeah.
What a start.
I didn't think of anything. I was like, okay, interesting.
Put in
Then
the
I s-
fucking high on life, dude.
Okay.
To be
Then
fair,
no.
That moment happened with the mirror. I didn't know you could do anything, so I was just sitting there like a fucking idiot waiting. I thought I had to snort it or whatever, and I'm like, how do I do the thing? And then
Yeah.
No,
then she's like,
Austin said
I'm
no
like,
to
"Oh!"
drugs.
Yeah, I was saying no for a
No.
solid couple minutes, and then I'm like, what the fuck am I supposed to do?
And then what got me was going down to the fridge and reading the note your mom left to you, and your mom goes, "Your sister's already been accepted into some schools." I'm like, these are fucking high schoolers.
Yeah.
Right.
But her being annoying, I got was kind of the bit.
I loved it.
But her being like, "Oh, I'm gonna go explorers," and you're out there. I'm like, we've been in space 10 minutes. Why are you
the
acting
joke.
like you're the victim here and you're so bored? I don't know. That rubbed me the wrong way. And
But-
then Jean was like, Jean, I don't think you're supposed to genuinely like. So I'm like, yeah, sure, you're a lazy fucking bum. You're jerking off on my couch.
Right.
Whatever.
That never rubbed me the wrong way because they're simply just pop-up messages. Plus, shout out, AOL, they got BOL in space, right? And so it's just like BOL, like message pop-ups of like, hey, I'm dating a guy, and like,
Yeah. That was
if
less
you wanted to
annoying.
ignore him,
No,
that's how like you got him.
Sorry, that was more annoying to me from the like.
Narrative.
I guess like the
perspective.
characterization of it. Whereas
Fair enough.
being stuck there and having to listen to the
Like the
arguments, and
post-mission
then
arguments.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then you do have to do it with her and Tweeg in the fucking space RV, and you're
Loved
just
that
standing
too.
there.
I loved that.
No, but
too.
again, the jokes always start out funny, but then they end, then they don't end, and they just keep fucking going. It's like, I get it. You guys are both aliens to each other. You don't know how to have sex. Why are you having this conversation in front of me?
That's
Yeah.
the joke. I know.
Yeah, literally.
Austin, if I walked through a portal and one of my 3 sisters was talking to an alien about how they don't know how to have sex because their cum goes everywhere, I'd fucking jump into the wormhole.
I killed myself.
No, fuck all of that. I'd gladly kill myself.
Well, because I think we're wrapping up ish. I do want to mention like one of my favorite moments of the game, and one of my favorite moments of the game is the narrative point where I think these people who got in a car accident were just like warped to this other planet, and then they're just arguing for the rest of time,
Oh
and then you
yeah.
come back, and they like formed a little society on
Hey, it's
this
Highway
went back
Village.
there.
no,
on
so
this road, and they're still bickering at each other, and you can just sit there and listen to it, and it will loop if you want to just keep
wait,
listening to it.
is this an Earth couple?
No,
No.
this
Okay,
is
yeah, because yeah, I remember you like have to make a platform, so like you take part of the highway. My read on that was that they got into an accident because the highway was randomly warped to the planet, not that they had already gotten into the accident.
It
Because you
got, well, I
warp
mean,
it there.
maybe. Yeah, I understood that, but I didn't know
But
if
yes,
I
the
caused it or not.
yeah.
I couldn't remember. But all I know is that they got in an accident, and then they were bickering about it. And then when you come back, they have their own little like highway
Society,
village or
yeah.
whatever. Yeah, it's I found that hilarious. But
Oh yeah. I exploring the worlds like was something you definitely could do. Like you're mainly just looking for money for more upgrades, and then you'd find
yeah,
mods and suit upgrades. And the intergalactic trading cards, like I was like,
oh, yeah.
this is funny. Like the take on the
Trash
what
Pail
is it? The
Kids or whatever.
fucking Trash Pail Kids, the fucking Mad comics or
magazine.
whatever, the Mad magazine. And then reading some of the online forums, like they read like actual like unhinged real life online forums. I was like, this is
Sure.
pretty funny, to the point where like Gene was even like, have you seen those fucking degenerates on there? Like, oh my god. But again, like I think the main reason you'd want to explore is again the dialogue and just finding like
Agreed.
random exchanges. Like I found some dude who's just like talking about Oreos, and the other
Did
guy
you?
was like, "What? Why are you talking about Oreos so much?" He's like, "This is as short as a sleeve of Oreos. Like it's not enough." And he's like,
I
What are
don't.
you paid by Nabisco, parent company of Oreos and shit like that?" I was like, "This is great."
I don't know if I should even mention, but there's a certain vendor in this game. Okay, they only sell one thing, and it's a jar full of something. I don't know if
Oh
I want
yeah.
to say
Yep.
what this
I
is.
know what you're talking about.
I bought it. I
Yep.
was like,
Same.
don't know.
Same.
I also bought a volleyball for no reason. I was like, cool,
Same.
that's in my inventory now. Actually, I didn't buy it. I got a free sample because I kept pestering him about it, and then he's like, here, take this free sample. And then when you beat the game, you get an achievement because that's in your inventory. It's like you brought this all the way to the end. Congratulations or whatever. And I'm
The
like,
Yeah, I
the
yes.
saw the
vial that dude
screenshot
sells.
about this, but I didn't because Alec, I believe you sent it in the chat at one point, being like, where some person was like, "This is most of the game," and like, I didn't find the humor to be like that, but I actually did not run into that vendor.
Well, I mean, I didn't either unless I went out of the way in Blim City. Is that what it's called? Blim
Yeah.
City,
Yeah, like the
the
main
main
hub.
city.
Yep.
There's a when you go to the fucking shop, the
Pawn
pawn
shop?
shop,
Pawn
or
shop?
whatever. It was
Yeah.
just funny because he doesn't want to sell anything. I thought that was funny for the first couple times. That was one of the things where the joke wore off.
Yeah.
If you instead go to there and you just take that first right instead, he's literally just standing right there. He's like one of the first
Yeah.
people you talk to right there. And
Gotcha.
the only reason I encountered him is because I was like, I wonder what's over here because I've been going to the pawn shop back and forth for a while. So I went over
Yeah,
there and there he
so-
was.
So that is a positive. The levels are definitely bigger than I played them with or played them as, because like I played the game very linearly.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think the levels being bigger and allowing you to go back almost Metrovania style goes back to, I think, what kind of drew me into this game is that it felt like an adult Ratchet and Clank. The planets are weird. There's a lot of parody in it. The weapons are unique and do different things sometimes than just shoot. And the world is kind of like stylized like that. Like again, like I think that's really what drew me in. And
Yeah,
it does kind of achieve that vibe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think overall there are creative ideas here. Like there's that one thing where you're like, I think it's like the second to last boss where they like put you under some drug and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
you walk in this like dream world, but like the closer you get to one, the one gets bigger and farther away, but it's the same thing.
It's an
It's like
endless
that's
loop.
Psychedelic.
yeah, I was like that's kind of cool. I really enjoy that. So there are creative
Yeah.
ideas here, and if you get the secret ending to this game, which I don't exactly know how to, I think you just collect all of something, all of like the information about the mayor and Kenny's planet. If you get there's like bits and pieces of information you can like find throughout the world and you get the secret ending. There's a dope cutscene that I YouTubed. If you play this game and you haven't seen that and you want to know everything, watch that. It's really, really cool. Like it's genuinely cool, not just funny. But in that, without spoiling too much, they literally talk about a sequel. They literally talk about like there's certain things we would do in a sequel, blah blah blah. I am excited to see what the next game in High on Life is because there are a lot of aspects where I'm like, if they just improve this, if this is better, blah blah blah. Like I genuinely think High on Life 2 or whatever that is could be a 9 caliber game, like a 9 out of 10. I
Higher on
genuinely
Life.
believe that. Yes.
Too high on life.
I'm not guaranteeing that.
Ooh, I
but
like
think,
that one, Josh.
What'd you say?
Thank you. Too high on life.
Oh, I thought you said
Yeah.
I thought you said a new high on life.
Oh no, I said too high on life.
They'll probably call it High on Life again or something like that. They'll try to be funny about it. But
Still High on
I
Life?
genuinely
All great names.
think
All great names.
no bad suggestions. I genuinely think that the sequel to this game has a lot of potential to be a genuinely like must play title. This one is not that.
Yeah.
But I think this is still worth your time if you like the humor, if you just want a quick 10-hour experience. Because the thing about this is, if you have Game Pass, this is fun. I had fun playing this game, even though not every aspect is fun to play. I don't think there's a single aspect in that I think is. There's nothing bad about this game, in my opinion. I did have a few things where like the dialogue was my favorite part. Sometimes the dialogue would just stop. I saw the subtitles, but nothing was happening. No one was speaking. And to me, I was like, that really fucking sucks for me because like the main reason I'm playing this game are those things. So technically, I had a few issues, but like overall, I don't think there's a terrible aspect in this game. If they tighten all that up and they make the Metroidvania give more purpose, the combat more purpose, has more flow, and they lean into the humor again, maybe more planets and stuff, maybe a little bit bigger scope. I genuinely think that the sequel to this game would be worth everyone's time.
Yeah,
I agree.
As for the dialogue thing, this is something that like I don't know if this was supposed to be the joke, but it is one of those things that if it was, it didn't land with me. Is that in the final level, the like suit AI that's like a parody of Clippy, pops up and goes, "Hey, it's me again. I've been here the whole time. I just and then he ends it with being like, "Well, that's it. No more lines for me." I missed everything in the middle because he pops up while you're fighting a shit ton of guys. So all his lines could have been the funniest fucking moments of the game, but like I couldn't pay attention to that. I had to fucking make sure I didn't die.
You didn't get detective mode thing?
No. This is in the last level of the game.
No, I know, but the between detective mode and that, there wasn't anything.
Yeah.
From my memory.
Yeah, that was part of the joke, I think, is that he hasn't popped up since detective mode. So he pops up at the last level to be like, "Hey, it's me. This is my last line. Ha ha ha." But it goes on for like 2 or 3 minutes. Then
you mean that moment specifically you didn't understand?
Yeah.
Sorry,
I misunderstood. Sorry. That's what I mean is everything he said in between, "Hey, this is my last line," and "Oh, hey," I didn't get because he came up in the middle of a fight. And maybe that's the joke is that sometimes characters talk at inopportune times, but like I was just annoyed.
I took in between as in between that moment.
Oh, between the game. No.
Yes.
Sorry.
My mistake.
I meant in his last bit of dialogue in that last level. I did not pick up anything he said. But I just wanted to say, like, piggybacking off the major thing you said, Austin. I would play the sequel to this game. I know I've been harsh on it. I do want to see like Squanch Games get better because I mean, for a multitude of reasons. I want to see just smaller game developers get bigger, so not everything is the huge third-party companies that are probably going to get bought out eventually. The way the industry is going, I do think that there is room for comedic video games, and while this might not be my favorite version of comedy, I think it's kind of like it's still a step for comedy because like I think video games were very actiony for a while, and then the last generation has been very much making high art because we want to prove to like I guess the grander world that these are art the way TV and movies can be.
I just think it's really funny how on the High on Life review you compared it kind of to high art. Like
no. I said the last generation.
Funny to me.
I didn't compare. I said last generation was like, oh, sure. Last of Us, God, like it was about making like this very heart wrenching art, but like. There should be room for fucking dick and fart jokes in video games as well. Like
exactly.
Agreed. We need it. Josh, is there anything we didn't cover?
That basically like I think we went over a lot of it. And yeah, I definitely echo a lot of your sentiments too. Like I said, this is a strong foundation, and there's definitely like more to be improved on. I do see myself. I don't know. Either I think I will replay it solely just to get all the like like the stuff out of the guns, like get all the dialogue options, and then also even when you get to choose dialogue options, like there are ones that are like completely missable if you don't pick them. So I would go back and just like see how the dialogue plays out if I choose something else. Like I picked one and the guy was like, "Yeah, I ate 26 sandwiches last night. Don't ask me why. I just got real sick." Right? Missable dialogue, right? And stuff like that. And on the Kind of Funny podcast, like Justin Roiland was like, "There's stuff in this game people aren't gonna find until years out. Like there's like so many just Easter eggs and references and whole ass movies and whole ass movies."
Say, you can literally sit down and just watch movies.
That's so cool.
Right. And I think that adds the like replayability to it. Although like while the gameplay is very basic, there's so much to just like dig into here, and so I think it's a strong foundation.
I do want to wrap up, but I just remembered one thing that we can discuss a little bit. I want to keep it quick. There's a point where these people, the mac and cheese race or whatever, you need to go talk to their dad in this saloon.
This is where I found out that different possibilities could happen. I realized that,
they were like, "I'm gonna force you to duel this guy." And the guy's like, "Oh, I don't wanna." He's like, "We'll do it on 3." They'll do it on 1. They count down 3. I shoot him right in the head immediately. I don't give him a second to count down. And they're like, "Oh, you cheated." And then his dad dies. And then you have to run to them and be like, "Well, your dad's dead." And then they puke out love bridge, and you use this bridge.
Okay, so see, it's not that different because I lied to them and went, "Your dad said he loves you," and they were so happy that the love came out of their heart and it made the love bridge. So I was like, I wonder what happens if you tell them the truth. Turns out basically the same thing.
I told them the truth. The same thing happens, but the fact that was like the designed narrative point in this game, I really enjoyed that, and I wanted to see if anyone had any different experience.
That also just reminded me of like what characters they let you and don't let you kill. I get when you're going around the overworld and like you try to choose one, they're like, "Oh no, we're not killing this guy. What the hell's wrong with you?"
I like that aspect of, because in every game I'm always like ding ding ding, like I'm always trying that dumb shit. I like that they speak about that.
However, I think we should have been allowed to kill Helen, the secretary bear, because even though she was one of the cute bears, she's fucking working for the enemy and doesn't seem to care about it.
Do my job.
She's great. I liked her a lot.
But she was great. We should have been allowed to kill her. I actually think there's a few people you should have been allowed to kill that like they didn't let you.
I agree, and I think honestly, I think you should have been able to kill most random NPCs with Knifey. Like Knifey already underutilized, but
he
like
has the
bloodlust. Knifey has the bloodlust. Exactly. Like I should have been able to like just murder anyone, and like Kenny and the other guns could have been like, "Yo, maybe cut it out," and like maybe there could have been something in terms of like
GTA cops, but like a little different.
GTA cops, or maybe them just sweeping it under the rug just by being like, "Okay, well, you're taking out the G3s, so greater good, but maybe also still stop like murdering people." Like they could have worked around it if I would just going on
with their humor and how they write things. They can give literally any reason why they get swept under the rug or why it doesn't. It wouldn't matter. It'd be funny.
Yeah,
exactly.
So before we wrap it up, I do need the score from you and any last thoughts, Josh. So what would you give this score out of a 20-point scale, 1 to 10?
I was bouncing back and forth between 8 and 7.5, and 7.5 is what took it in the end.
I think that's a perfect score, is 7.5, because the whole foundation thing is, I agree. There's a lot here that if it just had a little more refinement, this could be up there in the echelon. So the sequel, I'm looking forward to very, very much.
Yeah, it was the gameplay and like some of the weapons feeling underutilized and stuff like that. That's really what did it. And then some of the exploration stuff, like kind of basic. Like I wish if I saved humans like that, like saved more humans, or the amount of humans I currently saved, I wish that played like a little bit more into
because you can like warp them back to the human haven, right? When they're in the cages or whatever. I did that to like 4 or 5 of them, but never heard anything about it again.
You get that upgrade kind of early on, and then I think you use it like 2 or 3 times.
It's the same thing with the gun at the end. Like once I rolled credits, he just disappears.
Well,
he's just gone.
Okay, him leaving after roll credits is very weird choice. Him not being there till the last level makes sense because he's like the S machina.
Well, what I mean is I rolled credits and I rebooted the game, and I'm on continue, and they talk like, "Oh, you finally did it! I can't believe it! You can go around and do whatever you want," and he's not there, and there's no explanation as to why he's not there. You just don't have him anymore.
Because they want to break the game.
Let's do it. Yeah, that guy.
And then since we mentioned like favorite moment, I'd say there's a moment where you're like definitely like there's an NPC dying and they're like, don't leave me. You know, like I'm here and the world's getting so cold. Please don't leave. And then you walk away and like it's like, oh, I'm not dead yet. I'm not dead. Please don't leave. And
Is it the bear thing?
the Care Bear looking ass thing.
Yeah, I literally just immediately shot him and moved on.
Same.
I
was like, I wonder if they'll let me kill one. I was like, I wonder if they'll let me shoot one that's already on. And then it happened before I even realized it. And they're like, you took him out of his misery. And I was like, he had a lot more to say.
I was like, yeah, that's what I did.
I waited that out, and then I tried walking away, and he's like, "No, please, you're off so soon. Like, come back," and shit like that. And like Alec and I were talking to, and there's a moment where they're like, "Hey, wait an hour for this thing," and I kind of want to see what it's like to wait an hour. You know, like there's so much.
I looked that up because at first I didn't see like where you had to go. People are like, if you wait an hour, nothing actually happens. It's not like Far Cry 3 where like
game.
Is
there even an achievement?
I don't know if there's an achievement, but here's the thing: the fact that Far Cry 3 did that, or maybe it was 4, where they did the joke where they're like, "Oh, hey, wait here," and then like technically you're supposed to leave, and that's how the game starts. But if you don't leave for 10 minutes, credits roll.
Yeah, that's funny.
I feel like this game was perfect breeding ground for being like, let's give people who actually wait an hour or something. But I also could see the team being like, let's give those fucking nerds nothing.
Yeah, and I kind of like it, but I kind of hate it.
We talked a bit about the mirror moment at the beginning. I wish there was something like that there, where if like I didn't select the character, or if I just waited there out, she like closes the thing and she's like, okay, well, fine, be boring, and then leaves the room. And then it like
what if you wait like 10 minutes and then you play as the sister, and then it changes the entire game? That'd be dope. I had one more thing and now I forgot it. It's gone. Oh, did I mention it on recording or before recording about the boss that just kind of falls and he dies? Was that before recording or was that on recording?
I don't remember.
Before recording.
Okay, so I found that funny. I thought that was hilarious. Like we talked about how the bosses were kind of like they weren't very memorable and they were kind of hard on the checkpointing. The bosses were just kind of there. The one boss I enjoyed was the fact that you just like barge into this room and he's there and he falls and he breaks his neck, and then you go through all of this like these trials of like a wave after people, and eventually he's like, I know who killed me. Nope, wrong. I know who killed me. Nope, wrong. I know it must have been me. Like that.
I did it. I finally killed myself. I worked with the urge. Oh, I'm sorry. Shit, that got real dark there. Anyways, I did it. Like I love that shit.
Yeah, it was funny. It was good.
No, that was a good moment.
Okay, that everything, Josh?
I think that sums it up for me.
We have covered it. High on Life gets a 7.5 from the Shared Screens crew, and Josh leading that charge. Thank you for watching. Check out our other reviews on the channel. I don't know what review is coming up next. We'll talk about that with the team for the new year, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, Alec, on the 1s and 2s. I'm gonna say goodbye now. Bye-bye.